So I want to talk about the story of Joseph today. The story of Joseph is pretty well known as far as I know. Um, it's Joseph. I mean, there's a DreamWorks movie about it. I don't remember if it was good. It's been a long time since I've seen it. I remember liking it, and I've heard good things about it. But anyway, story of Joseph. There's some. Last week I covered the story of Jacob. Joseph is actually Jacob's son. There were a couple things that I forgot to mention when I talked about Jacob, which I'm going to bring up real quick. So, actually, the one thing that I wanted to bring up that I completely forgot to. So, Jacob had, I think 11 sons by this point, all from, none of which were from Rachel. And, yeah, and he had at least one daughter. We're only told the name of one daughter because the Bible is sexist, I guess. And she is, we'll say, defiled by a member of a different tribe, and her brothers are like, and we'll let you marry her if everyone in your tribe gets circumcised. That way that way our ideals will align better. So every single person in the tribe gets circumcised. Every man, anyway. And then the next day, they all got circumcised so that this one guy could marry this girl who was the daughter of some random guy that they didn't know. So real good broship there, I guess. While they were still sore, the Bible says, the very next day, Jacob's sons go and wipe out the entire tribe. They just kill all of the men in the tribe. I just wanted to point that out because, I mean, the death by circumcision. Okay. Anyway, so Joseph was one of Jacob's sons. He was born to Rachel, who was Jacob's favorite wife of the two, and then the other two bondservants. Anyway, so Joseph was the favorite son because he was the first child of the favorite wife, right? So Joseph was favored in the eyes of not only Jacob but also Rachel because he was Rachel's only son until later, though the Bible had already mentioned Benjamin, who was Rachel's other son, but presumably Joseph doesn't know about him until 30 years down the line or whatever, however long it is. Anyway, so Joseph gets given this coat, this beautiful robe. It's called the coat of many colors in a lot of translations. Or like a ornate robe, just a really pretty robe. But his mom makes him one. She weaves it for him, and he's always favored by he doesn't have to go work out in the fields and all that. And his brothers really don't like him because I mean they're jealous basically of him being favored by their father and his mother. So, Joseph, not Jacob, Joseph has a dream. He has two dreams, actually. The first dream, him and his brothers are like harvesting bundles of, I think it was wheat. They were harvesting something, and the bundles, Joseph's bundle was like standing in the middle, it was like upright in the middle, and the brothers' bundles were all bowing down. And their brother's like, "Oh, we're gonna bow down to you? Yeah, right. Or why are you saying that? It's stupid. Why would we bow down to you?" And this, I also want to point out that divination is considered a sin everywhere else in the Bible. Actually, I think there are a couple other instances of divination, but it is explicitly stated as a sin, despite Joseph, one of God's chosen people, doing it. Anyway, so. And then he has another dream of the sun and the moon and the stars. It's 11 stars bowing down to him. So his father and his mother and his brothers all bowing down to him. And at this point his dad's like, what are you saying that I'm going to bow down to you? Why would I bow down to my own son? All this. He's like, well, whatever. I mean, that's what God's telling me or something. It was a dream. I mean, dreams don't mean anything inherently, let's be honest. But this is a fantasy story, so it's okay. So then Joseph wants to like go see where his brothers are because they're out working wherever. He asks his father, "Where are my brothers?" And he tells him. So he goes to his brothers, or where he thinks his brothers are. They're not there. To my knowledge, this is like a 50-mile walk. I think something like that, like 50 miles away. They're not there. So he asks someone in the place that they were supposed to be, "Hey, where are my brothers? Have you seen them?" And presumably they just know, this random person that he asks just knows who these people are, because he's like, "Oh, they're like 12 more miles away or something." I don't remember the exact numbers, but it's really far away. So he goes to where he says they were, and they're there. And they're all like upset at Joseph, and they're off really far away from their father, and Rachel, and presumably the other the other people would mind. So they all scheme to murder Joseph. So they throw him into a cistern, like basically a well. They throw him down, a dry well, luckily for Joseph, and they're just planning to leave him to rot and die, right? But the one of them, I don't remember his name. It doesn't really matter. He's like, "Oh, we shouldn't kill him. There's this conveniently timed slave trading caravan coming. We should sell him to them and get something out of this, right?" So they sell Joseph to the slave caravan for, I think it was 30 pieces of silver. And they take his coat, they dip it in some lamb's blood, and they take it to the father, and he's like, he died. Look at his blood all over this thing. And Jacob's like, he was definitely eaten by an animal. There's no looking into this anymore. So in Jacob's eyes, Joseph is dead. And Jacob's like, my favorite son. Oh no. But he was actually sad and not completely, well, not monotone like my voice. So then Joseph gets sold to this guy named Potiphar, whatever. And his wife is really into Joseph, right? Because Joseph is like one of the hardest workers. He's basically put in charge only under Potiphar. And he's like a great worker. He's well-toned and all that, because I don't know. Anyway, so Potiphar's wife, who doesn't get a name because women don't get names in the Bible. What are you, crazy? She tries to get Joseph to have sex with her, basically. And Joseph's always like, no, that I wouldn't do that to Potiphar. He's my master, blah, blah, blah. And eventually, when all of the other servants are out of the house, there's no one else, or in the palace, I guess. It's just her and him, and wherever they were. Brain not working. Potiphar's wife grabs his coat, and she's like, lay with me. And he's like, no, and he tears away. He leaves his coat behind and runs. And I just want to point out that Joseph is a well-toned, like, strong young man who didn't try to get his coat away from this random Egyptian woman. I don't know. Seems kind of weird. Anyway, he runs away, does his job, and then Potiphar's wife is like, look, he left. He was gonna take his clothes off. That's why I have his whatever this piece of clothing is that isn't well defined in modern translations of the Bible. There are some translations that say it's just his clothes, just a robe. Anyway, that's beside the point. So Potiphar kicks him out. He sends him to prison for trying to sleep with his wife. Now in prison, he gains favor from the guard, and he's basically put in charge of all the other prisoners for whatever reason. Because I guess the guard was bad at his job, or he didn't want to work, which, I mean, relatable. And Joseph is in this jail with a baker, with specifically the Pharaoh's baker and the Pharaoh's cupbearer. So these two have a dream, and they're like, we can't decipher these dreams because apparently everyone thought that dreams meant something. And Joseph is like, well, tell me your dreams. The cupbearer's dream was that he had, I think it was 3 cups, and he was pouring wine into them for the Pharaoh, something like that. Something with 3 and something about pouring cups for Pharaoh. And the baker is like, well, I had 3 baskets full of loaves on my head. Or no. Joseph interpreted the cupbearer's dream first. He's like, oh, well, it means in 3 days you're going to be accepted back you're going to be released from prison and you're going to serve the Pharaoh. Again, you're going to be a cupbearer again. I think it's basically a butler, to my knowledge, but I mean, cupbearer, doesn't really matter. The baker's dream. He's like, oh, that's a good reading. Why don't you tell me my dream? What my dream meant? And he had 3 baskets with bread loaves, and on top of his head, and crows. I think it was crows. Birds. Some kind of bird was eating the bread out of the baskets. And Joseph's like, oh, you have in 3 days you're gonna be beheaded and hanged or something. I don't remember if it's beheaded or hanged. And Joseph's like, cupbearer, if what I say comes true, then tell the Pharaoh about me and, let me out of prison. I'm not supposed to be here. So the cupbearer completely forgets about him. Everything Joseph said comes true exactly. The cupbearer completely forgets about him. And then years later, I don't remember how many, I don't think it says how many exactly, but years later, ooh, excuse me, the Pharaoh has a dream. And he's calling all these people from all across Egypt, all the magicians and seers and whatever. And he can't find anyone to interpret his dream. Even though they could just make something up. I guess people weren't very creative in those times. I mean, it's the Bible, so I guess people weren't creative. Anyway, so the cupbearer's like, oh wait, Joseph could probably read your dream. So Pharaoh sends for Joseph, brings him in, and Pharaoh's like, oh, can you tell me what my dream means? Or can you figure out what my dream means? And then Joseph's like, no, I can't figure out what your dreams mean, but God can tell me, because I guess he had to throw that in somewhere, because it's the Bible. We got to have an allusion to God somewhere. And so Pharaoh is like, well, I had 2 dreams. In the first, there were 7 fat, healthy cows that coming up out of the Nile, and they were grazing in the fields. And then 7 gross, ugly, skinny cows came up and then consumed them whole, I guess. And they were still skinny and ugly and gross. In my second dream, there were 7... There are 2 translations that I've heard. It's either 7 ears of corn or 7 stalks of grain, 7 stalks of grain. And they were healthy and strong. And then 7 ugly and skinny ones came up and devoured. I don't know how corn or grain would devour other corn or grain, but we'll go with it. I mean, it's a fantasy story. And Joseph's like, oh, well, this means that there's going to be 7 years of plenty and great harvests, and then there's going to be 7 years of famine and drought. And so you should get someone trustworthy and wise to take 1/5 of the harvest from the healthy years, and then spread it out among the people during the 7 years of drought and famine. And Pharaoh's like, oh, well, there's none more wise than you, clearly. There's some random guy who was in prison for the last few years, who the cupbearer, who my butler just randomly suggested might be able to interpret my dream. You might be lying, but I mean, you might as well take over and collect my taxes for me. So he does it. Everything happens exactly as he says. And within the 7 years of famine, Joseph's family, they're in an area that is affected by the famine. So the 11 brothers who sent him into slavery, they show up and they're like, sir, we need food. And Joseph recognizes his brothers. His brothers don't recognize him. And I might get the exact order of events wrong here. It doesn't really matter for the point I'm trying to make, but I'll try to explain it as well as I can. So Joseph's like, but how do I know that you're not Canaanite spies? I think they were Canaanite. Anyway, how do I know you're not spies? And they're like, dude, we just need food. And then he's like, well, I'll give you food, but you got to prove that you're not lying. And by this point, they had mentioned Benjamin, because they were mentioning their family. He's like, you got to bring your youngest brother. I'll keep one of you here. I'll send you away with food, but if you ever want this brother back, you got to bring your youngest brother, because I guess he wanted to check up on Benjamin or something. Prank him, John. You already know. Why did I reference that? Anyway, so the 10 brothers pack up. They leave to go pick up Benjamin. Well, they didn't leave to pick up Benjamin necessarily. You'll see what I'm talking about. So they have their grain sacks and they look at them, and in them was their money was returned, and the brothers are like, oh shoot, we got our money back. That was probably a mistake, but they didn't notice that until they were all the way back home, because I guess they didn't realize that the grain sacks were abnormally heavy or something. It's a fantasy story. It doesn't matter. And they get back. And they tell their father everything that happened. I think Simon was left behind. I'm not sure though. And they eat all the food, which means they stayed there for a while. Because they must have brought quite a bit of food back, right? All of the food is completely depleted, and the brothers are like, "Oh, we gotta go get more food," but he won't let us have more food unless we bring Benjamin. But Jacob doesn't want Benjamin to go because he's the only other child from Rachel, his favorite wife. So he's like, if Benjamin dies, I will have, or every gray hair on my head will be full of sorrow or something stupidly poetic, whatever, pretentious. So they're like, I think, I don't remember which one. One of them's like, tell you what, if Benjamin dies before we don't get him back, you can kill my sons. Go for it. And so Jacob lets them go, lets them take Benjamin. They get back to Egypt, and they're like, "Oh, sir, our money got returned. Here, take it, and then take more money for more food." And who knows how long this was later. This could have been years for all we know. Or a year, I guess, because it's a 7-year drought. It's still within the famine, right? So they return the money, they give more money to get more food, and they let out, I think, with Simon, the guy in the jail, they let him out. They send everyone home with food, but he puts a cup, a gold cup from the treasury or whatever, I don't remember. They feast. They feast together for whatever reason, I don't remember why. And he puts a cup in Benjamin's grain bag, because I guess he wants to prank him again. Sends him home, and then he sends guards after them to check the bags. And they check every single brother's bag except for Benjamin's. The cup's not there. They check Benjamin's, and of course the cup is there because he put it there. And Benjamin's like, "What? I didn't take this. What? So he gets taken back to Joseph, and then they all like bow down to him. They're like, "Oh, forgive us. We didn't do it. He didn't do it. I promise. And our father's gonna die sad if you kill that one. Take me instead." All this. And then Joseph's like, "I really got you guys. That's a real knee slapper. Anyway, I'm Joseph, the brother you guys sent to slavery. I was just paying you back for that. Remember that? Yeah, you guys are jerks. Anyway, come and go, hug me, bros." And then they all make up and whatever. And then Joseph's like, "Father, give me, or bring your father here and live here with us. Live in Egypt. We're prosperous." And then they all move into Egypt, and then you get the whole Israelites. There are what's the word I'm looking for? The population expands very quickly, and then eventually you get another Pharaoh, who doesn't trust the Israelites, and he's like, they're outnumbering us, and that's what leads into Moses, right? So my point being, telling this entire story, it's an interesting, fun story, but people take it seriously, and so let me give you an order of events. God sent this guy Joseph to Egypt through slavery because his brothers hated him. He caused the person he was sold into slavery to, his wife, to try and seduce him, which got him sent to prison. Again, this guy is supposedly in great favor with God. He interprets dreams. He spends who knows how long in jail. interprets dreams of the Pharaoh, a famine happens. That's a big one. A famine happens that probably killed who knows how many people, right? A lot of people died during famines, regardless of how much food is stored. Because they just like can't afford food or whatever, right? And then, and then, all the Israelites move in and whatever. So, but God did all of that horrible negative stuff, potentially killing hundreds, and all for Moses to be born. And then you get, the slaughtered babies and all that. So, like, even if all of this was for some major plan, why couldn't God create a plan that doesn't require so much suffering? Is that point come across well? That's what I was going for this entire time. Why did God create a plan that requires so much suffering, right? God's not perfect, obviously. God doesn't exist, but if he did exist, he's not perfect. Whether or not he is worthy of worship, I guess, is a subjective thing. But personally, probably not. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, excuse me. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I was going to make this yesterday, but I just didn't for whatever reason. I love you all. Hope you enjoyed. I already said that. I don't know how to end this.